Good afternoon, year two. Welcome to Thursday's RE lesson. Now, I recommend watching the video of the feeding of the 5,000 again from Monday's lesson, just to remind yourself of the story. Just before we do this, so we're going to do a little bit more work about what this story tells us about Jesus and about how we can be like Jesus. So we're going to be looking at how Christians' beliefs influence their actions today. I'm going to be looking at through the story of the feeding of the 5,000, but also another story that I'm going to read to you. So let's start with a question, like a situation. Jane is walking down the road when she sees a 50p piece which has been dropped on the floor. There's no one else nearby, and she can't tell who has dropped it. She has a choice. She can take the money and keep it for herself, tell her parents she found the money, or leave the money where it is. What do you think she should do and why? Okay, so she's found 50p on the floor. She doesn't know whose it is. There's no one else nearby. What should she do? Should she take it and keep it for herself, tell her parents, or leave the money where it is? Remember, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your opinion, as long as you can explain why. So what did you decide? What do you think she should do? Do you think she should take it? Do you think she should tell her parents about it? Leave it where it is? Which one do you think? And how did you make your mind up about what Jane should do with the money? What did you have to think about? Are there any rules you could follow which would tell you what to do in a situation like this? In the Bible, Jesus said that the two most important rules are love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. So what do you think Jesus means by your neighbor? Does he mean the person who lives next door to you or the person who lives across the road? What does he mean by your neighbor? That's right. Jesus means any other person, doesn't he? Love everybody as you love yourself. Okay? That means treat everybody the same, doesn't it? Don't be unkind to everyone. What does he mean by love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind? He means do everything to show God's love, doesn't he? So would God and Jesus want us to keep the money for ourselves when it belongs to someone else? Might be someone who's only got 50p and they might have lost it and they might be really upset. Probably not, would he? Would he want us to tell our parents? Probably, yeah, because they can do something to help us. Would he want us to leave it where it is? Well, we could leave it where it is, but the next person who finds it might take it for themselves. So if we can take it and tell our parents, and they might be able to do something about it. So here are some examples of some Christian organisations which have been set up to help others. Have you heard of any of them before? There's one called the Tear Fund, CAFOD, Christian Aid. So they are charities that are set up following God's example, following those Jesus's two rules: love one another as you love yourself, and love God with all your heart and strength and mind and soul. They try and do good things using that. So why do you think Christians are involved in this kind of work? Why do Christians want to help others? This is what we're going to be looking at today. And can you think of any ways that people in your local community help others? What do we do to help others? So I'm going to read you a little story now, okay? And I want you to think about its meaning. An old shoemaker, Papa Panov, was working very hard in his shop, getting ready for Christmas. It was really hard work. He was old, lonely, and nearly too blind to see what he was doing. He sat daydreaming and had a dream that Jesus was going to visit him. He got up very excited and thought to himself, now what can I give to Jesus for a present? He looked all around his little shop and he saw a tiny box on the top shelf. He remembered what was in it, some very tiny shoes, the best that he had ever made. He would give those to Jesus. Papa Panov awoke early on Christmas morning. He was very excited at the thought of a visit from Jesus. He looked impatiently out of his door and down the road. There was a road sweeper, blue with cold and looking very hungry. Papa Panov invited him in and made him rest by the fire. Papa Panov gave the road sweeper his coat and a little of the soup that he had made. There was still enough left for Jesus when he came, so it was all right. The road sweeper went away very happy. A little while later, Papa Panov looked out of his door again. He saw a homeless person walking down the road. Nobody should spend Christmas like that, thought Papa Panov, so he invited the man in. The homeless man got warm by the fire, had a little of the soup, and Papa Panov gave him all of the money that he had. The homeless man went away very happy. It was getting late when Papa Panov looked out of his window again. He was very worried that Jesus was not going to come after all. So he's still waiting for Jesus, isn't he? There was a woman with a small baby passing. They were very cold, tired, and hungry. Papa Panov invited them in to rest. He gave them the rest of his soup. Oh dear, he thought, now there won't be any for Jesus. He looked at the baby with nothing on his feet in this icy cold weather. He remembered the little shoes and fetched the box down. The shoes fitted the baby just right. Papa Panov gave the baby the shoes, but was very upset at the thought of having nothing to give to Jesus. Night came. Papa Panov had not had a visit from Jesus. He went to bed, feeling rather unhappy and very foolish. That night, Papa Panov had another dream. He dreamed that he met Jesus and asked him why he did not visit during the day. Jesus said, "But I did. I came as a road sweeper and you warmed, fed and clothed me. I came as a homeless person and you fed me and gave me your money. I came as a baby, you looked after me and gave me shoes. By making all those people happy, you have made me happy." So what do you think Jesus meant by that? Think about those two rules that Jesus says. Love God with all your heart, your mind, your strength, and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. What do you think Jesus means by that? So think back to the story of the feeding of the 5,000. What does Jesus do in this story to be helpful? Well, he spends time teaching all the people, even though he wants to be on his own, and he gives them enough food so that they're satisfied. Does anyone else in this story follow Jesus' example? Well, we've got the little boy who gave all his food to Jesus so he could help others and trusted Jesus. So if you think about it, that little boy gave everything he had because Jesus told him to trust him and Jesus said he could make it better. The little boy could have said no, and there would have been nothing that could have been done, but he showed faith, didn't he? He had that faith in Jesus. The disciples also helped, didn't they? They handed out food to others, carrying out Jesus' example. And again, by making all those people happy, you have made me happy. So the little boy helped others, and that would have made Jesus and God happy. The disciples helped others. That would have made Jesus and God happy, wouldn't it? So what can we learn from the story? Well, anything we have can be made even better if we allow Jesus to help us. If we give up the things that are special to us, food, time, talents, gifts, money, etc., then Jesus will allow us to use them to make amazing things happen. So basically, if we're not greedy, if we share and we take time to spend with others, then things will get better for us and everybody else, won't they? And also that Jesus wants us to help others and share out his goodness. Jesus is without sin, isn't he? We know that Jesus was the only person born without any sin. And he wants others to try and follow his example. Now, obviously, we're not as perfect as Jesus, but we can try and follow his example, can't we? So by sharing out that food with all those people, it was like sharing out Jesus's goodness and passing it on to others. Does the feeding of the 5,000 remind us of any other stories about Jesus or any actions we might see in the Mass? When Jesus gives out the miracle bread and fish, it's similar to the story of the Last Supper, in which he gives his body in the form of bread and blood in the form of wine to help his friends. So it's similar, isn't it? That story, it shows what's going to happen, because this is before Jesus had his Last Supper. But Jesus was still sharing out parts of him in the form of the food that he'd made using his own miracles and his own talents. He's sharing that out just like he did at the Last Supper. And we also see this during the Eucharist at Mass, when people take the bread and wine during Holy Communion. So the priest, who's acting like Jesus, who's doing Jesus's job on earth, hands out the bread and the wine, don't they? Now, Jesus wants us to be like him. But how can we do this? What could we do? Have a think. What can we do to be like Jesus? Now, we can't do miracles, can we? So we can't do those things that Jesus did. But what else was Jesus like that we can be the same as? Now, we know that Jesus brings God's good news to us on earth. He was sent to repair our relationship with God, which was broken by Adam and Eve and all the humans that followed them through our bad choices and wrongdoings. The good news, which we call the gospel, is the story of Jesus' birth, his miracles in his life, his death, and his resurrection on Easter Sunday. If we follow Jesus' teachings of God's love and forgiveness and try to be like Jesus, although I know this isn't easy, then we will live forever in heaven. So basically, the good news, the gospel, is that God loves us and that God forgives us for the things we do wrong. And Jesus allowed God to forgive us, didn't he, by coming to earth? He brought God's love with the actions that he did, but also he died to take away all the badness that we'd done, all the sins that we've done. And that gave us God's forgiveness. He took our punishment and he never moaned about it and he never got angry about it. He just did it because he knew he had to. So Jesus lived his life helping and saving others. Everything he did was done to help others be happier and safer. And here are some ways that we as Christians can spread the good news and be like Jesus by helping others. So how do Christians help others? Well, we can visit the elderly and sick. We can comfort people who are lonely. We can clothe the poor. We can feed the hungry. We can show kindness to each other. We can forgive other people, just like God forgave us and Jesus forgave us. We can help people who have fallen out to make friends again. We can stand up for the weak. So if anyone's been picked on or bullied, we can stand up for them, can't we? And help them to be protected. We can be humble. So this is a picture of someone washing someone's feet. Now, in the Easter story, Jesus washed his disciples' feet, didn't he? At the Last Supper. So we can be humble. That doesn't mean we have to wash people's feet, but it means we shouldn't show off. We shouldn't think we're better than other people. So if you are really good at maths, rather than bragging and saying how good you are at maths, you could help somebody else to get better at their maths. So you can share your gifts, can't you? We can give alms. Now, not arms as in these arms, alms with an L. And that means to give money to people who need it. So give money to charity, give money to our church, give money to poor people who haven't got enough. So those are the ways that we can help. And they're going to be important for the task we're doing today. So you can always pause the video or rewind the video back to this point. So we're also going to look at the Beatitudes, which are from Matthew 5, 1 to 12. In Matthew's Gospel, we hear about Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount. During his teaching, he explained to his followers things that what Christians should do to be like Jesus. Jesus explains that these actions show we are ready to go to heaven. So these are some of the things he told us to do and some of the actions that Christians perform that show that we do this. So Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So people who are not show-offs, people who are kind and gentle. So we can help people who are also weak and sickly. Visit the elderly, comfort the lonely, clothe the poor. So Jesus says that for us to get to the kingdom of heaven, we need to help those who are poor in spirit, those who are not happy, who are not well, who need extra support. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So that's saying people who remember people that they've lost, so people who've died, they'll be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. So the meek are the people who are gentle, but not horrible to anybody else. So we can be humble, share our talents. We can feed the hungry. We can give to the poor. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. So that means people who always try to do the right thing, they don't let a bad thing happen. They try and stand up to people. So people who stand up for the weak. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. So someone who's merciful, that means someone who forgives, okay? Someone who doesn't punish people just because they can and make people feel bad when they've made a mistake. So we can forgive others, can't we? Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. So this is people who are not mean, people who are kind. So showing kindness, having a clean heart. Blessed are the peacemakers, they will be called children of God. So peacemakers, people who help people to make friends. So if some of your friends fall out, rather than taking sides and being horrible to somebody else, you could try and help them to make friends again, couldn't you? Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So what Jesus is saying here is that blessed are those people who try and do the right thing, but get in trouble for it. So again, standing up for the weak. So what does the word forgiveness mean to you? Can you think of any examples from your own life of a time when you've been forgiven for something? So is there anything you've done that you've been forgiven for? And how did it feel to be forgiven? What would it have been like if you were never forgiven? How would you feel then? Have you ever forgiven someone for something? Was it difficult to forgive them? Why? How did you show them that you'd forgiven them? How did you let them know? Is forgiving more difficult than holding a grudge? So is it more difficult to say to someone, I forgive you, rather than saying, no, you did the wrong thing, I'm not talking to you anymore? What's easier? And there's examples of this in these 3 Bible verses. So that's the end of our lesson today. So what you're going to do, your tasks today, you're going to, one second, you're going to get a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to draw some pictures and write sentences of as many ways as you can that we can be like Jesus. So how can you be like Jesus? What can you do? Okay. So for example, you could play with someone when they are lonely, couldn't you? You could help your friends to make friends when they've fallen out. So that's the activity. How many can you think of? I want lovely pictures to go with each one. And your challenge, if you want to do it, so if you're feeling you want to do some extra work, is to think of how your chosen actions are being like Jesus through the stories or things we know about him. So for example, what I mean by that is, if you say you'll play with someone who's lonely, when did Jesus do something similar? So we might say, I will play with someone when they are lonely because Jesus spoke to the lepers and helped them when they were lonely. Because remember, in the story of the 10 lepers, the thankful leper, no one wanted to go near them, did they? Everyone stayed away from them. So they must have been very lonely. But Jesus chose to help them and talk to them and recognize that they were human beings that needed speaking to. So if you, for each idea you come up with for how you can be like Jesus, if you can give me an example of when Jesus did something similar through his actions, then that will be even better. Okay. Look forward to seeing you work again year 2, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.